Through the rebirth of the film and television world in 1945, he started from a small thug and built his own empire. He is a renowned underground king who created the Las Vegas casino with his own hands. Creating a private prison industry, no criminal dares to provoke him, because one day you will fall into his hands. He can send you to heaven or send you to hell. The Hardy Mercenary Corps has combat power comparable to that of a country, and uses it to protect industries worldwide. No one knows how much wealth he has, because Hardy Group is one of the most profitable industries in the world. Note: there is no female lead in this book, only women. Keywords of the novel: Hardy Empire 1945 no pop-ups, Hardy Empire 1945 complete collection download, Hardy Empire 1945 latest chapter reading. Chapter 1 Setting Sail. Hardy and his brothers. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1 Setting Sail. Hardy and his brothers' friendship is everything. Friendship is more important than talent, more important than government, and it is almost equivalent to family. Don't forget this. Quotations from The Godfather, end of this chapter. Chapter 2. Jon Hardy. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2 Jon Hardy. The Battle of Iwo Jima, known as the most brutal battle on the Pacific battlefield, lasted from February 19, 1945 to March 26. The entire island was almost bombed to ashes. In this battle, the Rice Army lost a total of 6,821 soldiers and suffered 21,865 injuries. 22703 Japanese soldiers were killed and 1083 surrendered. In the battle, Sergeant Jon Hardy, who belonged to the Marine Division, was very brave and shot and killed more than 10 Japanese soldiers. Unfortunately, a bullet pierced through the chest while charging with my own team. When he woke up and was transported to a medical ship for treatment, but no one knew, Jon Hardy's body had already been replaced with a soul from China. Jon Hardy was born in 1921 and is 24 years old. He has no parents and only has a high school education. He has served in the military for 5 years and has participated in multiple battles, developing a strong character. And the soul of China comes from modern 2021. Two souls are separated by 100 years. After a long time, I finally accepted my identity. The female nurse in charge of Hardy is named Catherine. There are dozens of nurses on board, and Catherine is the youngest and most beautiful. Catherine helped Hardy change her dressing, disinfected the front and back wounds with iodine, poured sulfonamide powder, wrapped it in gauze, and helped Hardy lie down. Sergeant Hardy, I believe you will get better soon, Catherine comforted with a smile. Thank you, nurse. A few days later, the medical ship was filled with wounded people and set sail back to the port of Hawaii. Hardy discovered something. His injuries were originally considered serious, but he recovered unusually quickly. No inflammation. The wound has scabbed for 2 days. Only one scar remains in 10 days. After half a month, he fully recovered. This recovery speed is almost 10 times faster than the average person. Hardy dare not tell others, afraid of being treated as a monster, but he guesses and suspects that this is his travel benefit. Nowadays, the two souls have not fully fused, and the two memories are constantly interacting, which sometimes makes Hardy feel dizzy and uncomfortable. He went to see a doctor, and of course, the matter of traveling through time cannot be said. He only asked how to alleviate his mental confusion. The ship was filled with surgeons who were not proficient in Hardy's condition, and analysis suggests that he may have a mental illness. Many soldiers have suffered from war trauma since coming down from the battlefield. The doctor gave him some sedatives and prescribed a test strip, asking Hardy to go to the psychiatric department for a thorough examination after arriving in Hawaii. The ship was full of injured people, and the nurses were very busy every day, which made them very tired. Hardy's body recovered a lot, and she could still help Catherine if she had nothing to do. With Hardy's help, Catherine's workload has been significantly reduced, and Hardy has also made many friends while taking care of patients. Half a month later, the ship crossed the Pacific and arrived at the port of Hawaii, with all injured personnel landing, including the nurses on board. There will be another wave of nurses replacing them. Hardy underwent a physical examination in the hospital, and the doctor found that his body had recovered, but he didn't pay much attention. There were too many injured people, and the doctor didn't have the energy to pay special attention to him. Hardy took the note written by the doctor on board to the psychiatric department for examination. After a brief inquiry by the doctors here, the diagnosis was that he had post-war psychological trauma syndrome. Conclusion: hospitalized for 1 month and receive psychological treatment. In the inpatient department, Hardy saw Catherine again and they were already very familiar. Hardy had a good impression of the girl with 2 dimples when she smiled, and invited Catherine to a restaurant in downtown Honolulu for dinner. After dinner, the two of them took a walk on the gentle beach, enjoying the gentle sea breeze and beautiful night. It was a bit late, and they didn't return to the hospital. Naturally, they walked into the hotel and had a pleasant and wonderful conversation in bed. Afterwards, Catherine lay in the man's arms, caressing the gun scar on her solid chest. She told Hardy that she thought Hardy was the most handsome on the ship. In the morning, Catherine went to work at the hospital, while Hardy lay in bed. After a night of physical and mental treatment by the young nurse, he felt much better in his mental state. Hardy once saw someone online saying that love is the best medicine for treating psychological trauma, but now he believes it. Walking naked into the hotel bathroom. In the mirror, the man has a strong body, 6 abdominal muscles, mermaid lines, strong and powerful thighs, short black hair, small but deep eyes, naturally carrying a fierce smell. A slight grin, with a mischievous aura in his smile. No wonder women like it. During the following month of treatment, Hardy spent half a month in a hotel with Catherine. Catherine is a nurse, so there must be no shortage of nurse attire. White hat, stethoscope, silk stockings, vacuum nurse uniform, these are really perfect matches. But good times are always fleeting, and on that day a lieutenant officer found Hardy. "Sergeant Hardy, your injury has healed, and the military is preparing to arrange for you to return to service." Hardy immediately shook his head. He now has a Chinese soul in his body and is unwilling to sacrifice his life for the American people. Besides, the battlefield is ruthless. Although he is recovering much faster than others, he is not immune to death. Even if a bullet hits the body, it still bleeds, and if it hits the head, it will definitely be fatal. He has made up his mind to retire. He ran to the psychiatrist and said he was still in a daze. The doctor gave him a post-war trauma syndrome certificate, and that's how Hardy left the army. A few days later, he received a pitiful severance pay of a few $100s and a combat medal. He bid farewell to Catherine at the hotel and boarded the cruise back to Los Angeles the next day. What to do in the future? In fact, Hardy is a bit confused now. Because through these 2 months of observation, he found that the world was somewhat ambiguous, and many places were not the same as the world in his memory. In his past life memories, the current President of the United States should be Harris Truman, but now he is an old man named Johnson. There are many things he knows in this world, as well as many companies and celebrities he has never heard of before. In the newspaper, he also saw some reports, such as a few days ago when the leader of the Mafia Corleone family, the Godfather Vito Corleone, held a grand wedding for his youngest daughter Connie. Seeing this report, Hardy felt a bit confused at the time. Isn't it the plot from the movie The Godfather, where the Godfather Vito Corleone married his daughter? How could it appear here? The Federal Bureau of Investigation has filed another lawsuit against Chicago gangster leader Al Capone, which is the 7th accusation Capone has faced in his lifetime. It is unknown whether the underground emperor of Chicago will pass away safely again this time. Not long ago, he also read a news report. The federal court charged Nucky Thompson with tax evasion and sentenced him to 10 years in prison. Nucky Thompson was imprisoned, causing several major powers in Atlantic City to disintegrate and the future to be unclear. At that time, he didn't care. Looking back now, isn't this the plot of Atlantic City Empire? Hardy seriously suspects that he has traveled to the world of film and television. He plans to settle down first and understand the world before speaking. The crews arrived in Los Angeles and then took a bus back to my hometown in Orange County. I rented a small apartment and settled down. A few days later, I found a job as a waiter at a tavern. His working hours are from 3 p.m. to 11 p.m., which gives Hardy plenty of time during the day. Get up in the morning to run and practice your physical fitness. There is a boxing gym near his house, and Hardy has registered. He will go to the gym to practice boxing in the morning. Traveling through this time and space, Hardy initially hoped for the system mentioned in the novel, but unfortunately waited for a long time but it didn't appear. But he also found that he was different from ordinary people. For example, his physical recovery ability is 10 times stronger than that of a normal person. This was already noticed upon rebirth. Practicing boxing in a gym can inevitably lead to injuries, muscle strains, swollen eyes, and abrasions from fists. These minor injuries can be completely healed by just sleeping the next day. Even during one practice session, I accidentally had my rib broken by the strongest boxer in the gym, Garcia, and it only took me 3 days to recover. Also, his sensitivity to crisis is much stronger than others, and he suspects that it may be due to the fusion of two souls. After more than 2 months of training, Hardy's physical fitness, endurance, fighting ability, and fighting awareness have all been greatly enhanced. Yesterday, while practicing with Garcia, he only took 3 minutes to make that guy unable to get up and his eyes were black and his mouth was bleeding. Hardy has become the strongest boxer in the gym, and the coach advised him to focus on boxing. Perhaps in the future, he can become the best boxer in the United States and earn a lot of money. Hardy thought for a moment and finally refused. He has greater aspirations for the future and doesn't want to be just a boxer. Besides practicing boxing, I also occasionally practice shooting. His marksmanship is already good, and the battlefield has cultivated his extremely strong combat skills. His main training is in the art of drawing spears. When he was in the military, he met a guy from Texas and told Hardy that he had won a county-organized fast gun competition championship. After they became friends, they taught Hardy their best drawing skills. Hardy bought a second-hand Colt revolver for $45, and the owner included a gun holster. Occasionally, he would go to the wilderness to practice shooting, and luckily, he could even bring back 1 or 2 wild game players. Hardy lived a peaceful life, but the world did not stop, moving forward vigorously, with countless big events happening every day. On August 6, 1945, a little boy exploded in Hiroshima, and on August 9, a fat man exploded in Nagasaki. On August 15, Japan announced unconditional surrender. On September 2, the surrender letter was signed, marking the end of the Second World War. But these have nothing to do with Hardy. Now he is just an ordinary American, a tavern worker. The new book set sail, please support us all. Every collection and ticket is the greatest support for Rain. Rain is here. Thank you all, old and new readers. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Bill Pitt. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Bill Pitt. Good afternoon, John. Good afternoon, Sonny. At the entrance of the working tavern, I happened to meet Sonny, who was also an adaptation student. Sonny warmly greeted Hardy and the two worked together for 3 months, becoming good friends. Sonny has French ancestry, with long chestnut hair rolled up and not particularly beautiful, but she is young, only 19 years old this year. It is said that young women are not ugly, and Hardy thinks it is indeed so. 2 people enter the door together. Changing clothes and cleaning up, the guests were scattered in the afternoon, and after nightfall, a large number of guests flooded in, making the tavern noisy. A tavern is a place full of good and bad people, but there are also many jerks. A guy drank too much and saw Sunny walking by. He grabbed her waist and pulled her onto his lap, causing Sunny to scream in fear. When other drinkers saw this scene, no one stood up to stop them. Instead, they all showed a mischievous smile and watched the excitement from the side. Hardy saw Sunny's frightened expression and glanced at the tavern owner, only to find that the tavern owner didn't even look here and continued to take the beer seriously. After working in the tavern for a few months, Hardy knew that the tavern owner was a coward. The boss turned a blind eye, but Hardy couldn't watch Sunny being teased. Although the drunkard couldn't have been too extreme in public, his behavior was already a great insult to a girl. Hardy stepped forward and grabbed Sunny's arm, pulling her out of the man's arms. "You go to the back," he said. Sunny got out of trouble, gave a grateful glance at Hardy, and quickly ran into the kitchen. The girl was taken away by Hardy and teasing Sunny felt embarrassed. She was very unhappy and glared at Hardy angrily, cursing and saying, "Kid, are you seeking death? This is a tavern, I want to find a woman to go somewhere else," Hardy replied coldly. The people watching the excitement next to them laughed. Unexpectedly, he was lectured by a tavern waiter, and the drunk felt offended, thinking that people were mocking him. "Pick up the beer from the table and splash it vigorously at Hardy." Hardy instinctively dodged and was not splashed with alcohol, only a small amount splashed on his body. After looking at this guy, Hardy turned around and left. Ignored by Hardy, the guy felt even more uncomfortable. He slammed his beer glass into the ground with a loud bang, shattering it into countless pieces. Hardy turned around to look over, and the person looked at Hardy with a cheap smile on their face, tilting their lips and saying, "Kid, I accidentally broke the beer glass. Don't worry, I will compensate according to the price. If you don't clean it up now, it's your job." Speaking, he pointed to the ground. Hardy brought a broom from the stairwell hallway, but just as he was sweeping the floor, the guy stepped on it and looked at Hardy provocatively. The surrounding drinkers were watching with great interest what was happening here, just to watch the excitement. Suddenly, a frenzy of emotions echoed in Hardy's mind. After traveling to this world for half a year, the modern soul has completely merged with the original soul, which has also caused a significant change in Hardy's personality. Originally, Hardy's personality belonged to a calm form, but after integrating Hardy's thinking, it became much more wild than before. Looking up at the drunkard, Hardy's eyes became cold at the moment, and the person's expression was stunned because he saw a strong murderous aura in the eyes of the young man in front of him, as if he was being targeted by a tiger. This gaze made him feel scared. "A timid mind arises in my heart." But the next second, he became even more angry in his heart. How could he make a tavern adapt to being scared? It made him feel ashamed. "Kid, dare to look at me with such eyes." This guy got drunk and punched Hardy. Bang. Before the drunkard could punch Hardy, Hardy moved and punched the guy hard on the chin. The guy flew out with a punch and hit the ground heavily. Hardy took a step forward, rode on the person, grabbed the jerk's neck with his left hand, and hit him hard with a strong right punch in the face. Bang! 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 A fierce beating made the guy's mouth and nose bleed. The man was still struggling at first, but after a few punches, he completely collapsed on the ground, becoming like a dead dog. The boss quickly came over to Lahadi. "John, don't hit him again, you're going to kill him like this." The people in the tavern were all surprised as they looked at Hardy. They didn't expect this usually quiet and adaptable person to get so angry. If no one stopped him, he might have really killed that guy. Not long after, the police arrived and the man was taken to the hospital. Hardy was taken to the police station and later detained on charges of injury, awaiting trial and sentencing. Imprisoned for about a week, the court is in session. In court, Hardy's lawyer presented a mental illness certificate and brought in several witnesses, including the girl Sunny. Because the other party was at fault first, the judge ultimately ordered Hardy to compensate the other party with $350. The compensation plus legal fees, Hardy's retirement allowance was used up all at once, and he even sold some things, including the second-hand Colt revolver. He has completely become a poor person. I also lost my job as a bartender. After all, it caused trouble for the boss. Going out to look for a new job, everyone refused. The small town was not big, and people heard about what happened at the tavern. They knew that Hardy was suffering from mental illness, and in order to avoid trouble, no one was willing to hire him. Just got home, Hardy saw the girl Sunny standing at the entrance of the apartment. "John, thank you for helping me that day. Also, I resigned and am preparing to leave Orange County," Sunny said. "Where are you going?" "I have saved up some money during this period and am preparing to go to school." "You are still very young and should indeed study. What are you planning to learn?" "I am planning to study law and become a lawyer or judge in the future because of what happened at the tavern that day, which gave me this idea," the girl said. "A great idea, I hope you succeed," Hardy encouraged. Sonny O'Connor looked at Hardy and suddenly stepped forward to give him a big hug, kissing him on the cheek. "Thank you again, John. Goodbye." "Goodbye." Looking at Sonny's back, Hardy didn't know if he would see this girl again in the future. Many people are actually just fleeting passers-by on your life journey, perhaps never to intersect again. Lying on the small bed in the apartment, Hardy pondered how to live his life in the future. Orange County probably couldn't stay any longer. Just then, the landlord came up to call him, and there was his phone downstairs. Hardy went downstairs to answer the phone, but unexpectedly it was Bill calling. Bill and Hardy were once comrades and best brothers in the same team. Hardy also saved Bill's life on the battlefield. He was injured in a battle and retired after recovering from his injuries, leaving him 1 year earlier than Hardy. On the phone, Bill was very enthusiastic and said, "Brother, I just found out that you have been injured and retired. I finally got your contact information. How are you doing now?" "Not good." Hardy talked about his previous experiences and current situation. "I'm penniless now, I've lost my job, and to make matters worse, everyone here knows I'm mentally ill and no one wants to hire me." Bill chuckled and said, "It's not a big deal. Come to Los Angeles, there are plenty of ways to make money here." So, Hardy packed his things and set off for Los Angeles. Just as he got off the long-distance bus carrying his suitcase, Bill got out of a nearby Ford car and came up to give Hardy a bear hug. After the two parted ways, Hardy looked at Bill. Bill had dark golden hair, clear blue eyes, and typical big cheeks with short stubbles, which looked 7 times like Brad Pitt. Hardy thought to himself, Bill's full name is Bill Pitt. Also surnamed Pete, can't it be Brad Pitt's grandfather? "Haha John, finally I see you again," Bill happily patted Hardy's arm and said. "We've been apart for almost 2 years now, you've gained a lot of weight compared to before." Hardy patted Bill's broad back and said, "Am I strong or fat?" Bill retorted. As he spoke, he took the suitcase from Hardy's hand and threw it into the back seat of the Ford car. "Get in the car, let me catch you first and have a good drink at the bar," he said. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Bill's Serious Injury. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Bill's Serious Injury. The car stopped outside a bar, and the neon lights outlined a playful bunny girl. The name of this bar is Bunny Girl Bar. The two of them walked in and Hardy found it much livelier than the tavern he stayed at in Orange County. Vague dark-toned lights, jazz music, women dressed in revealing clothes, bustling voices, and the smell of marijuana permeating the air. Women adapt to the attire of bunny girls, with tight-fitting bikinis that give their figures a curvy appearance. They wrap their long legs around stockings, and their tall rabbit ears stand upright and bend down one by one. There is also a plush ball on their buttocks, making them look very cute. A beautiful bunny girl came over and said, "Bill, what do you want?" "Let's have 2 beers first." Bill smiled and patted the bunny girl's buttocks, then teased her a few more words, and sat down in a booth with Hardy. The rabbit girl brought 2 glasses of beer, and Hardy and Bill bumped into each other, took a big sip, and they talked about their past in the army, and then talked about the current situation. "Did you join the gang?" Hardy asked in surprise. Bill shrugged his shoulders. "When I left the military, I only received a few $100 retirement allowance. You know, I have a big family, parents, and 5 younger siblings, and that little money is not enough. I originally wanted to work hard and earn money. I used to work in factories, do odd jobs in shops, wash cars, and work as a transportation driver, but my income was only enough to make a living. Now that prices are skyrocketing, my salary is being squeezed even lower by those damn capitalists. They say the war is over, there are so many workers that they can't use up, and they are not afraid of no one to work. The newspapers say that the country is prosperous now, but the unemployment rate has greatly increased but no one reports it. I have a friend from a Jewish gang who asked me to join, and that's why I did it. It's pretty good now, and I earn a lot more than working," Bill said with a smile. "What are they all doing?" Hardy asked. "Send wine, collect accounts, and maintain order. The gang has underground casinos, loan companies, all of which require accounts receivable, as well as private tobacco and alcohol businesses that provide drinks to bars and nightclubs in the neighborhood. This nightclub is my responsibility," Bill said. "No wonder the people here are so familiar with him." The 2 of them raised their glasses and touched each other. Bill looked at Hardy and said, "John, let's work together. With your mind and skills, you can definitely stand out." Hardy shook his head. He doesn't want to join the gang. In his previous life, Hardy had also succeeded in business, but was later framed and fell from the peak. Having memories of his past life and decades of experience beyond this world, he believes that as long as he finds the right path, he can definitely make big money in the future. And the underworld is a thorny road. "I plan to find a stable job," Hardy said. Bill shrugged and didn't persuade Hardy again. "Okay, you'll stay with me for now," he said speaking. He took out a stack of bills and handed them to Hardy, with hundreds of dollars. "Here's the money for you. Looking for a job requires a well-fitting suit. It's getting cold now, and you also need a beautiful woolen coat. Go buy one tomorrow." Hardy is very poor now, with only a few dollars on him. He didn't refuse Bill's kindness and took the money into his pocket. Seeing that Hardy didn't refuse, Bill was very happy. The 2 continued to drink and chat until late at night before leaving. It was drizzling outside, and the weather became a bit cold. The 2 drove back to Bill's apartment. The car was parked in the yard, and Bill arranged a room for Hardy and told him where the bathroom was. Hardy took a comfortable shower. Wiping his hair, Bill greeted Hardy and lifted the living room sofa, revealing what was underneath. "John, here are 2 guns and a few magazines. Feel free to pick them up if needed." Hardy saw that those 2 guns were the Colt M1911, which was a military gun. Jon Hardy used the short-gun Colt M1911 during his service, and he was very familiar with this type of gun. Hardy smiled and said, "I'm planning to find a serious job, I don't need a gun." Bill shrugged and said, "Who knows?" Bill poured another glass of wine for the 2 and continued chatting in the living room until late at night before going to bed. The next morning, Bill and Hardy said hello and went out to get busy. Hardy tidied up briefly and also left the door. "I bought a new suit and woolen coat on the commercial street, which made me look more energetic and handsome. I also bought a newspaper to check job vacancies, including factory workers, accountants, drivers, hotel waiters, and porters. After checking for a while, either the salary is too low or the job position is not suitable. In the afternoon, I went to several recruitment companies to try it out." As Bill said, although the economy is good now, there are more people looking for jobs. Many companies only ask Hardy to fill out a resume and there is no follow-up. Returning to Bill's house at night, Bill asked Hardy about his job search situation. Hardy felt a bit helpless and said, "It's not going smoothly. There are too many people looking for jobs, and I don't have a degree or professional skills. There aren't many suitable jobs." "Just started, don't worry," Bill comforted. For several consecutive days afterwards, Bill went out to busy himself with his own affairs, while Hardy searched for jobs everywhere, but there was not much to gain. Mainly, he doesn't want to do repetitive work in the factory, which has no development and is not in line with his ideas. Jobs that have development are not easy to find. That morning, Bill went out and smiled at Hardy, saying, "I'm going to collect a sum of money today, $5,000. This is a huge sum of money. If we can get it back, we can split it into 1/10 and come back to take you to a big meal. 1/10 is $500, which is enough for a person's salary of 2 months in this era." Bill went out, and Hardy continued to go out looking for a job. "It was noon, so I bought a hot dog and a cup of hot tea on the street, sat on the street to eat, and continued looking for a job in the afternoon. Until evening, there was still no harvest." Dragging his tired body back to Bill's apartment, as soon as he entered, Hardy suddenly felt a dangerous aura that stiffened his body. He instinctively wanted to exit, but the door suddenly closed and a pistol appeared, with the black muzzle pointing towards Hardy's head. There are 2 guys in suits in the room. One in front and the other in the back. The guy in front is holding a revolver, with the muzzle pointing at Hardy's head, only about 2 meters away from him. Another person stood at the door of the bedroom 4 or 5 meters away, with his hand in his pocket, making a gesture of being ready to draw a gun at any time. "Don't move," said the person with a gun pointing at Hardy in a deep voice. Hardy's mind flashed with countless thoughts. Thief. Robbery. Or is it Bill's enemy? "Who are you?" Pointing a gun at Hardy and taking a step forward, the revolver still pointed at Hardy's head, only half a meter away from him, almost pressing against his head. Hardy suddenly moved. Suddenly, the body dodged to the side, avoiding the muzzle of the gun, and at the same time, quickly thrust forward, grabbing the revolver in the opponent's hand with both hands moving forward and backward. That person was just shocked. Without waiting for any response, Hardy flipped his hands and forcefully grabbed the left wheel from the person's hand. The other party was shocked. The person at the bedroom door was so scared that he quickly pulled out his gun. Hardy's movements were faster, he turned his feet and grabbed the person in front of him by the neck with his left hand. The next second, the revolver was already pressing against his temple. "Don't move, just blow your head off." The person in Hardy's hand was immediately too scared to move again. The person at the bedroom door pulled out a pistol, raised both hands and aimed it at Hardy, but the situation at the scene had changed significantly, and his companion was being controlled. "Let Sean go." The person at the bedroom door shouted loudly. "Drop the gun, otherwise I'll take him down first." Hardy let out a roar, and the muzzle pressed down on the head of the person in his arms. The guy in Hardy's arms was frightened and his body was visibly trembling. The person at the bedroom door was hesitant and didn't know what to do for a moment. He could only grit his teeth and point a gun at Hardy, causing a standoff between the two sides. "Tell me why you came to my house, what's your purpose?" Hardy asked. The person in Hardy's arms was taken aback. "Your house? Isn't this Bill's house? I live here." The person in Hardy's arms immediately thought of something and quickly said, "We may have some misunderstandings. We are Bill's companions, are you Hardy? Bill told us that he has a friend named Hardy who lives at his house." Upon hearing what they said, Hardy realized there might have been a misunderstanding, but he didn't let his guard down and continued to ask. "Why did you come to my house and flip through the things at home?" The person in Hardy's arms immediately said, "We're here to get Bill some clothes." "Why doesn't Bill come and get it himself?" "Bill is injured, it's very serious." Thank you to the support of the book enthusiasts, thank you to the IPO Alliance leader for giving rewards, and also thanked the book enthusiasts for sitting at the grave and encountering ghosts, paying the news, poetry tears turning into love tears, waking up from dreams, black hearts dying, love Han Fei, and many other book enthusiasts for giving rewards. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. No Revenge for Non-Brothers. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. No Revenge for Non-Brothers. The misunderstanding has been resolved. Hardy also knows that the guy he just took the gun from is called Sean, and the one standing at the bedroom door is called Red. They are all under Bill's command. What exactly happened? Knowing that Bill was seriously injured, Hardy asked anxiously. When we came over, Bill was still undergoing surgery and his condition was not good. Get him some things and go back. Why don't we get in the car and say? Sean said. Hardy immediately followed them onto the car. Red drove, with Sean and Hardy sitting in the back. On the way, he told Hardy that Bill had been shot 3 times and is currently being treated at a private hospital. The situation is very bad. They went to collect money today, and the other party is a leader of a Spanish gang named Cook. The Jewish gang does not sell drugs, but there is always a need for that thing. After negotiation, the Spanish gang is allowed to sell goods in the Jewish gang's neighborhood, and they will receive a partial profit sharing. Cook was responsible for selling goods in Bill's neighborhood, with 5 or 6 people under his command. Bill, along with Sean and Ryder, approached Cook, but Cook was prepared to delay and even wanted to pay him back. Bill spoke harshly, but to his surprise, Cook pulled out a gun and gave Bill a few shots. Then both sides fired a few more shots at each other, and Cook ran away with his men. The 2 of them quickly took Bill to treat him. Before coming, we inquired and found out that Cook lost a lot of money in the underground casino half a month ago, about $10,000. He probably lost his share, so he couldn't bring it out, Sean said. At this moment, Red, who was driving, interjected, I suspect that guy Cook was a fan at the time and a bit disoriented. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been so crazy. Hardy remembered that Bill said this morning that he would receive a large sum of money, $5,000, which should be the share. Unexpectedly, there was an accident. The car quickly arrived at the private clinic. 3 people entered, and Sean stopped a passing female nurse. Nurse, how is Bill? The doctor is still undergoing surgery, taking a bullet from the shot in the stomach. He has shed a lot of blood, and I don't know if he can be saved. The female nurse finished speaking and turned to enter the emergency room. After waiting for about half an hour, the door of the emergency room finally opened, and a middle-aged doctor and 2 nurses pushed the hospital bed out. Bill lay in bed, his face pale, and he closed his eyes without any reaction. Dr. Murphy, how is Bill? Sean asked. Dr. Murphy pushed his glasses and glanced at Bill, saying, all 3 bullets have been removed and the wound has been treated. However, his injury is too severe and he has lost too much blood. His chances of survival are probably only 30%. I have done my best and everything I can, and now it's up to God's will. Pushing the hospital bed into the nearby ward, the nurse administered intravenous fluids to Bill. Hardy looked at Bill with a pale face, feeling very uncomfortable. The 2 had fought together for 3 years, and Bill was his best brother. Knowing that he was not doing well, he immediately called himself to Los Angeles to help him survive here, but now he has been injured and on the brink of death. After the nurse settled in, she looked at the 3 people in the room and impatiently said, you guys go out. You guys are useless to the patient here, maybe you'll bring bacteria. 3 people were kicked out of the ward. In the yard, Sean handed Hardy a cigarette. Do you know where that Cook lives? Hardy took a deep puff on his cigarette and asked. I know, B43.79 Brown Street, a 2-story building, Sean said. What does that Cook look like? Bald, in his 40s, very recognizable. Why are you asking this? Red looked at Hardy and asked. Hardy didn't explain. After the three finished smoking, Sean said to Hardy, "We need to go back and report Bill's situation to the boss now." "What about you, Jon?" "You guys go, I'll be here with Bill again," Hardy said. Sean and Ryder drove away. At this moment, it is completely dark outside. The surrounding lights are on. At night, the wind blew. Blowing on my face feels a bit cold. Hardy returned to Bill's ward again, and the nurse had already left. Bill was alone in the room, lying quietly in bed, breathing weakly and his face pale. Hardy walked to the bedside, pat Bill's face and say in a deep voice, "Bill, get through it. The battlefield didn't even take your life. It would be embarrassing to die in the hands of a thug. Brother, rest assured here. I will help you complete the things you haven't completed, and I will make the other party pay enough." After speaking, he turned around and left the ward. Stopped a taxi on the road and quickly returned to Bill's house. Lift up the sofa and reveal the two Colt M1911 pistols below. Insert the magazine and pull the bolt with force. Click. Load the bullet. Put two guns on the coffee table, turn off the lights. Hardy sat silently on the living room sofa. "I don't know how long it has been." Dang 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 dang. The clock rings. There are a total of 12 sounds. It happened to be 12 o'clock in the morning. Hardy stood up, grabbed two guns from the coffee table and inserted them into his back, then took two magazine clips and put them in his pocket. "Take off a hat from the coat rack and buckle it on your head, slightly press it down, then open the door and walk out." Brown Street. In the shadow. Hardy looked at the small building across from him. At this moment, it is 1:30 in the morning, and the surroundings are silent. Hardy arrived at the back fence, propped his hand on it, jumped in, and silently landed on the lawn in the courtyard. Go to the backyard door and gently turn the doorknob. It's plugged in. I came to the window and looked inside. There was a faint light coming out, which should be the bright and long-lasting light in the living room. I pushed the window but didn't open it. Then I walked to another window, which was inside the kitchen. After pushing the sliding window, there was actually some movement. Slowly lifting the window, Hardy skillfully crawled in and stepped on the stove to land inside the house. Outside the kitchen was a corridor with several rooms on both sides. Hardy leaned against the door and listened, but inside came a heavy snoring sound. Carefully arrived at the living room, where the lights were on but no one was around. He walked to the main door and opened the latch so that he could escape at any time. Take off the hat and hang it on the coat rack at the door. Pull out two pistols from behind, open the safety, the bullets are loaded, and Hardy opens one of the room doors. On the bed, a guy is sleeping soundly. Lift the pistol. Bang! The bullet pierced the person's head directly, and the bedsheet was stained red with the burst of blood mist. The guy on the bed trembled lightly and then remained motionless. The sound of gunfire woke up the others, and a few people rushed out of the other rooms, holding their belongings. However, as soon as the door opened, a dense barrage of bullets greeted them. Bang bang bang. Bang 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 bang. There was a loud gunshot in the villa, and all four people who rushed out of the room were shot in the chest and abdomen and fell to the ground. Hardy glanced at these guys, no bald. It seemed that Cook was not among these people. Just as Hardy thought of Cook, a slight noise suddenly came from upstairs, and Hardy felt his mind tighten and a sense of danger hit. Without any hesitation, he immediately collapsed forward. Bang. With a loud gunshot, a big hole was punched in the wall next to Hardy, and gravel splattered all over his face. Cook slept upstairs because he had many enemies and was usually very alert. When he heard gunshots, he immediately woke up and rumbled to the bedside, reaching out to pick up the long gun from the cabinet. This is a Winchester M1887 lever shotgun, using the number 12 shotgun, with tremendous power. It once shook the West, and in the Terminator movie, Schwarzenegger used this gun against the T.800 robot. Moving the lever with force, the bullet slammed into the chamber, and Cook rushed out in his pajamas. Through the crevice of the stairs, he saw a figure who couldn't help but raise his hand and fired a shot. Damn it, that guy managed to dodge ahead of time. Bastard, I must kill you. Click bang. Click bang. Cook fired while walking down, and a large hole was blasted out of the corner where Hardy was hiding, as the enemy's firepower was too strong and he was suppressed. With a twist of his mind, Hardy looked at the corpse on the ground. Lifting a guy and throwing it forcefully, Cook saw a figure darting out from inside and immediately raised his gun to pull the trigger. Bang dot. The shotgun hit the corpse, causing blood and flesh to splatter. The lights were dim, and Cook couldn't even see who the body was. Attracting Cook's firepower, Hardy finally found the opportunity to fly sideways out of the corner of the wall, with a few pistols aimed at the stairs. Bang 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 dot. Ah! A scream of agony. Cook was shot twice. One shot hit his stomach, the other shot hit his arm holding the gun. Cook fell to the ground, his shotgun falling onto the stairs, and he rolled down with a gurgling sound. Hardy stood up, raised his gun, and walked towards Cook. Cook finally saw the person coming, who was a young man he didn't know. He looked at him with cold eyes and could feel the strong killing intent on him. Don't kill me. Cook held his stomach in pain and begged. Hardy looked coldly at bald Cook and said, "Hee, do you know Bill? He's my brother." Cook finally knew who was going to kill him. "I can give you money, all of it, don't kill me." Bang dot. Before Cook could finish speaking, Hardy shot him in the head. He has no interest in talking nonsense to the enemy. Looking up at the room, blood was everywhere in the corridors, walls, and stairwells, with 6 corpses lying in a tangled pattern, making this place look like a Shura field. After killing 6 people, Hardy didn't feel any discomfort, and even due to the recent battle, adrenaline secretion made him somewhat excited. For over half a year, Hardy's soul has completely merged with Jon Hardy's soul. Jon is a guy who has experienced a real war slaughterhouse, and the current situation is only a small scene for him. Arriving at Cook's room, Hardy turned on the lights, opened several drawers on the boss's desk, searched, and found a stack of money in one drawer. P.S. Brother passing by, please click on a bookmark. If you have a ticket in hand, please submit 2 more. Thank you. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Eliminating the Jewish Gang. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Eliminating the Jewish Gang. $10, $20, $50, $100. There are all kinds of denominations, all old banknotes. Hardy guessed that the money was for selling fans, and the estimated $5,000 was only a little more, just a little more. He stuffed it directly into his coat pocket. In the cabinet, Hardy also found an exquisite box. Opening it, there was a brand new gold watch with a Rolex logo. This Rolex gold watch is a new model just launched in 1945. From the frame to the strap, it is made of gold and is the ancestor of Rolex gold watches. It was immediately sought after by countless people and its price reached over $1,500, making it a safe luxury item. Previously, at the Orange County bar, a guest was showing off to his friends, and Hardy happened to see it. Now he immediately recognized it. This watch is very new, and the packaging bag is still on it. It's estimated that Cook hasn't been willing to wear it yet. I happen to be missing a watch. The cash was for Bill, so let's treat this watch as my harvest tonight. Put the box into your pocket. He dare not delay too much. There is too much noise here, and someone will definitely call the police. It is estimated that the police will arrive soon. Insert the pistol into your waist and quickly step downstairs. Taking off his hat from the coat rack, lowering the brim and exiting the main entrance, a street lamp flashed past and quickly disappeared into the darkness. After Hardy left for more than 10 minutes, a police car pulled its siren and stopped at the entrance of the villa. 3 police officers got off the car and approached the door cautiously, holding guns. Open the door. The tragic scene inside the villa shocked the police. Blood was everywhere in the room, and several corpses were lying on the ground in all directions. The walls were covered in bullet marks, and a fierce gunfight was visible. Immediately notify the Federal Bureau of Investigation that a major case has occurred here. When the FBI arrived, many journalists had already gathered on the street, constantly taking photos inside. The FBI conducted an on-site investigation and concluded that there was likely only one shooter, with no other information known and no valuable clues. Asking the neighbors around, no one saw anything. After all, it was around 1 a.m. and everyone was already asleep. 3:30 a.m. The police carried the body away, and the FBI recorded this as a major first-degree murder case before evacuating. Ringing bell. The phone rang in the bedroom of an apartment. Click. Turn on the desk lamp. Fred looked at the clock on the wall. It was 3:30 in the morning. Fred is in his 40s this year, with a chiseled face and a mature and capable taste. He is the undisputed leader of the Los Angeles Jewish gang, managing over 200 members of the gang, and is definitely considered a prominent figure in Los Angeles. The Jewish gang occupies several of the busiest neighborhoods in Los Angeles, owns 3 underground casinos, operates high-interest loan banks and smuggling businesses, and also controls the supply of drinks to 5 nightclubs and dozens of bars in the area, earning an annual profit of $23 million. The phone was still ringing, and Fred picked it up. Inside came the voice of the second-in-command, Alan Payne. I just received news that someone entered Cook's house in the early hours of the morning and killed Cook and his 5 subordinates. Fred was slightly taken aback. At night, his subordinates reported to him that Bill, a small leader in the gang, was seriously injured by Cook from the Spanish Mafia while collecting accounts, and his life and death are unknown. Fred inquired about the situation at the time and specifically went to the hospital to see Bill. At that time, Hardy had already left. After returning, I discussed with several subordinates and prepared to check Bill's situation tomorrow before deciding how to handle it. I didn't expect such a thing to happen tonight. Who did it? Fred asked. I don't know. Isn't it our people? No, I have already asked everyone under my command, and they all said they haven't done it. Fred was even more surprised. Who would it be if it weren't our people? Do you know anything else? I learned from the police that the FBI investigated the scene and determined that there was only one gunman, said Alan Payne. Fred was slightly surprised and said, did one person take down Cook's 6 people? Yes, that's what the police said. Hanging up the phone, Fred looked at the wall and pondered. If it was a person who killed Cook, then that person was indeed very powerful. But who is this person? What is the origin? Fred's wife turned around and hugged the man, asking, Fred, what happened? Fred kissed the woman's hair and said, it's okay, dear. It's just a small problem. Go to bed and deal with it tomorrow. The morgue. Cook's body lay on the cold bed, with a pale and colorless face, and 2 deadly bullet holes on his forehead and abdomen. Danny was holding a cigar in his mouth, looking at Cook's body with a face full of anger. Danny is the leader of the Spanish gang in Los Angeles, and his gang name is Red Danny. Danny has a slightly overweight physique and is in his 50s. However, for men, his 50s are the age of wealth and strength. Danny has been working hard in Los Angeles for many years, with over 100 people under his command, occupying 2 blocks and running businesses such as bars, nightclubs, gyms, underground boxing arenas, and casino clubs. Their biggest business is buying and selling coca powder. Cook is a relatively capable subordinate of Danny, responsible for some drug sales, and can contribute tens of thousands of dollars in profits to him every month. Now his capable subordinates have become corpses, which makes him very angry. Who killed Cook? Danny asked in a hoarse voice. It's very likely that it was done by the Jewish gang, said a middle-aged man behind Danny, who was Danny's strategist, Burston. Jewish gang. Danny frowned deeply. The Jewish gang is the largest force in Los Angeles, followed by the Irish and then their Spanish. Other forces include Mexican and Tang gangs, as well as small groups of Russian, Polish, and French descent. I just found out that Cook lost a lot of money at our casino a while ago, and now he still owes the casino a lot, explained Bostan. Yesterday, members of the Jewish gang approached Cook for a split, but Cook was preparing to delay. As a result, the two sides clashed. Cook drew fans and, in excitement, shot and injured a small leader of the Jewish gang. That night, an attack occurred. Danny's face was extremely gloomy, and he bit his cigar hard. After a while, he held back and said, "Damn it. I don't know if this sentence is insulting Cook or the members of the Jewish gang." Leaving the morgue, Danny returned to the mansion with his strategist Burstein. The two lit cigars and poured a glass of whiskey. Danny pondered for a moment, seemingly determined, and whispered to Bostan, "I want to get rid of the Jewish gang. Apart from high-interest loans, casino clubs, bars, nightclubs, brothels, and underground boxing, the biggest source of income for Red Danny is coca powder, which can bring him nearly $1 million in income every year, 2 or 3 times that of other businesses." He occupied a small territory, and the Jewish gang had the largest territory in Los Angeles. However, the Jewish gang strictly prohibited drug trafficking, which gave Danny the opportunity. He approached the Jewish gang leader Fred and was willing to share a large profit, which allowed them to enter the territory to sell goods. Therefore, he gives the Jewish gang $300,000 to $400,000 every year for free. Danny has always been unhappy about this huge protection fee. Upon hearing Danny's words, Burston was shocked and frowned. "The Jewish gang is very strong, and we are no match at all." Danny sneered, "I've considered that we could collaborate with the Irish, and even bring in Mexicans, Chinans, Russians, and Poles to deal with Jews together. As long as we unite these people, we have the strength to take out those Jewish people and divide up their territory. We can have more bars and nightclubs, sell more coca powder, earn more money, and not have to give Jewish people a share." Danny's prospect is tempting, but Bostan is still very worried. But behind the Jews lies the Italian Mafia. The Mafia, Danny pondered a sentence. The current Italian Mafia is definitely a thriving presence in the United States, but Danny seems to have already figured it out. So we need to bring in Irish people. Irish people are enough to compete with the Mafia, and there is hatred between them. Otherwise, how could they name themselves white-handed? The main force of the Mafia is on the East Coast, with its headquarters in New York, as well as places like Chicago, Detroit, Denver, Kansas, and Philadelphia. The Irish on the West Coast are more powerful. A few years ago, when Fred brought people to Los Angeles to seize territory, the most infuriating person was actually the Irish because he was a nail in the Mafia's way into the West Coast. We instigated a conflict between Irish and Jewish people, joined forces to take down the Jewish gang and divide the interests. As for the Mafia, we can completely let the Irish handle it, we can hide behind it. It has to be said that Danny is also a very intelligent guy. After thinking for a moment, Sergeant Burston realized that Danny's idea was indeed feasible, and even if it didn't succeed, there wouldn't be much loss. "How are you going to do it?" Danny took a puff of his cigar and said with a smile on his face, "Bernstein, help me schedule a conversation with the Irish." "Okay, I'll arrange it at dawn." End of this chapter. Chapter 7. You have a trait. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. You have a trait. After taking down Cook, Hardy hiked home, and when passing by the Los Angeles River, he took out the gun and skillfully dismantled it, throwing the parts into the river. Destroy evidence. Even if someone accuses him of murder in the future, as long as the tools of the crime cannot be found, his crime will be greatly reduced, and there is even a possibility of being acquitted. Take out the watch box, put the Rolex gold watch on your wrist, and throw the box into the river from a distance. Perfect. Returning to Bill's house, Hardy turned on the stove and burned all the clothes on his body. Unfortunately, he only wore this new suit and woolen coat for a few days, which cost him over $70. I washed away all my blood in the bathroom and felt comfortable lying in bed. In the past, on the battlefield, any battle was not a near death, and after the battle, I couldn't rest well. It's not as comfortable as it is now. I don't know how Bill is doing. Wait until dawn to see him again, hoping that the brothers can make it through. Anyway, I have avenged Bill myself. Hardy quickly fell asleep, and when he opened his eyes again, it was already over 9 o'clock in the morning. I woke up to wash up, went out to find a restaurant to order, and casually ordered a newspaper. Opening the newspaper, the headline on the front page immediately caught his attention. A gunfight broke out on Brown Street, killing 6 people. The newspaper was accompanied by photos of police carrying bodies in bags and trucks. Later reports stated that all 6 of the deceased were members of a Spanish mafia, and it is speculated that the incident was caused by gang hatred. This incident may trigger a new round of gang conflicts in Los Angeles, reminding citizens to pay attention when traveling. Remember to also interview the police officer, who said he will definitely catch the culprit and protect the safety of the Los Angeles people. Hardy went to the newsstand and flipped through several today's newspapers, only to find that they all had reports about last night's shooting. He carefully examined the content and found that there was not much useful information in the newspaper, only some newspapers mentioned that the FBI investigation should have been carried out by one person. At this moment, Hardy heard several guests nearby discussing. "Hey, have you watched the news this morning? 6 people from the Spanish gang have been killed." Of course I did. The headlines of various newspapers in Los Angeles are all about this news. I know that Cook, a quite fierce guy. I heard he could be counted among the Red Daniels gang, but I didn't expect to be killed like this. I don't know who I offended. The newspaper says that one person killed 6, and the killer is really impressive. Who else can it be? It must have been done by other gangs. Maybe there will really be gang fires and fights in the future. The police should be able to handle it, right? Police, do you think they will really maintain public order and protect the safety of the people as they said in the newspaper? They are even better at collecting money. In Murphy's private clinic ward. Bill slowly opened his eyes. Sean and Red stood by, watching Bill wake up and jump up in excitement. Red exclaimed excitedly, "Boss, you're finally awake. I'm really afraid you'll go see God." Pop. Sean slapped Red. "You can't say anything nice." Red innocently touched the back of his head. Bill, however, paid no attention and smiled weakly, saying, "God may not like me very much, he doesn't even want to talk to me." Sean asked Red to call for a doctor, and soon Dr. Murphy came over. After giving Bill a check. Up, Dr. Murphy nodded and said, "Congratulations on surviving. Yesterday, I wasn't sure you could handle it. Fortunately, you have good physical fitness. Cultivate well for 3 or 4 months, and you will come back to life again. However, be careful in the future, you won't always be so lucky." "Thank you, Dr. Murphy." Bill thanked him. Dr. Murphy left the ward, and Bill looked at the door and whispered to Sean, "The person has left, give me a cigarette." "Boss, the doctor doesn't allow smoking," Sean said. "Don't talk nonsense, if a person can't live happily, it's better to die," Bill cursed. Sean lit a cigarette and handed it to Bill. Bill took a puff, possibly too quickly, and suddenly coughed twice, causing a painful wound. "Fake, damn Cook, he attacked me secretly. When I'm better off, I'll definitely seek revenge on him," Bill cursed. "Boss, Cook is already dead," said Red. Bill was taken aback and said, "Cook is dead, what's going on?" Sean took out a newspaper from his pocket, opened it and handed it to Bill. The newspaper recorded that Spanish gang leader Cook and his 5 subordinates were all killed at home, suspected to be caused by gang conflict. Bill finished looking at Sean, Was it done by the gang? Sean shook his head. Probably not. In the early hours of the morning, the upper class even asked us if we did it, and we still don't know who actually did it. However, it has to be said that the person who did it was really skilled, and even managed to cook 6 people alone. Sean's tone was full of reverence. Hardy had breakfast and returned to the private clinic. He pushed open the door to the ward and saw Bill chatting with Sean Ryder, feeling delighted in his heart. "Bill, you're awake." Hardy walked quickly to the bed. "Jon, you're here. I am very happy to see my brother Bill." Hardy looked at Bill's expression. Although his face was pale, he seemed to be in good spirits and probably couldn't die. "I was afraid you would die when I saw you like that yesterday," Hardy patted Bill's shoulder and said, taking out an envelope from his pocket. "Congratulations on coming back to life. I brought you a gift." "What is this?" Bill looked at the envelope in surprise. "Money, it's because this thing hurt you, I helped you get it back." Bill took the large envelope and opened it. Inside were colorful banknotes, all worth 10, 20, and 100 yuan. Something came to Bill's mind. "Jon, did you take down Cook?" Bill asked in surprise. Hardy did not deny it. "He moved my brother, and I must make him pay the price to help you complete your work." Looking at the envelope, Bill was deeply moved in his heart. "I was injured, and my brother went to seek revenge and killed Cook and his team. This is a true brotherly life and death friendship." Sean and Ryder next to him looked at Hardy in shock, realizing that it was Jon who did Cook's job. Last night he asked Cook for his address. It seemed like he had an idea. Breaking into the opponent's camp alone, killing 6 people without any harm to oneself. How impressive. He is truly a person who has survived on the battlefield. Bill smiled at Hardy and said, "Did you think I was going to die yesterday, so you ran to avenge me?" "The doctor said you only have a 30% chance of surviving," Hardy said. "If I die, it's useless for you to get the money," Bill smiled. "I will burn it for you." "Burn it to me, what do you mean?" Bill was a bit surprised. It is obvious that Bill does not fully understand the Chinese-style ritual of burning paper and objects for the deceased. Bill wanted to move his body and pulled his wound, causing him to frown in pain. Sean and Ryder quickly helped him lift it up and lean against the bedside. "You two go out first. Jon and I have something to say. By the way, Cook's matter is not allowed to be mentioned to anyone, you know." Sean and Ryder nodded and left the ward. "What are you going to say to me?" Hardy asked. Bill looked at Hardy and said, "Jon, I have something to ask you." "What's wrong?" "The doctor said I will be lying in bed for 3 to 4 months, and the area I am responsible for needs to be taken care of by someone. I would like to ask for your help," Bill said. "You want me to join the gang?" Hardy didn't expect Bill to bring up the old story again. "You can join temporarily and then exit when I'm good, otherwise I'm afraid I'll lose my territory now," Bill said. "Isn't there still Sean and Ryder?" Bill shook his head and said, "They can't do it. Sean can do the math, but he's too timid. Red has an impulsive personality and is not very intelligent. They need a head that can lead them, and now you're the best fit. If I don't manage it for 3 months, my territory will definitely be occupied by others. When I get better, I'm afraid I'll have to start over and all my previous efforts will be in vain. You know, I just bought a new house for my family and still owe a lot of money to the bank. If the territory is lost and my income is lost, my parents and brothers and sisters will have to return to the old house in the countryside again." Bill looked at Hardy with a pleading expression in his eyes. Hardy thought for a moment, "But since he hasn't found a suitable job yet, let's help Bill. I can help you manage it for a while, but will your gang agree?" Bill immediately smiled and said, "Let me talk about it." Just as Bill was talking to Hardy, another group of people came to the private clinic, Jewish gang leader Fred, with his second-in-command Alan Payne. Sean and Ryder were smoking in the hallway when they saw two big shots coming over and quickly threw down the smoke to stamp it out. "How is Bill?" Alan asked. "I've already woken up. Dr. Murphy is not in any big trouble, but I need to rest for 3 or 4 months," Sean quickly replied. Everyone arrived at the hospital room, pushed open the door, and saw Hardy in the room. Fred and Alan Payne are very unfamiliar with Hardy, and they both look up at him. Bill immediately introduced, "Mr. Fred, Mr. Alan, this is my best brother Jon Hardy. By the way, Cook's money has been recovered, and it was Tom who helped me recover it," he said, taking the large envelope from his bed. Fred understood what Bill meant by Bill's words, and Cook's actions were done by the young man in front of him. Take a closer look at Hardy. With a youthful and handsome appearance, he possesses a strong and robust temperament. If he kills Cook 6 alone, his skills will definitely be good. When a friend is bullied, they boldly take action to avenge their friend, and act with emotion, righteousness, and decisiveness. He greatly appreciates such young people. "Hardy, I see a trait in you that makes you very suitable for the underworld. How about that? Are you interested in joining the Jewish gang?" Fred took the initiative to speak up and solicit. "The comments section is full of people calling me the harem, which feels strange. Isn't eunuch writing popular now, with only female leads? When will there be a market for harem writing? Heavy Rain really wants to say that I have always been a very pure author, and the protagonist's behavior has nothing to do with the author. Disclaimer dear. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Set sail from here. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8 Set sail from here. I see a trait in you that makes you very suitable for the underworld profession, Hardy said, feeling a bit dazed as a movie clip flashed through his mind. Hong Laogui said, "Young man, I see that from head to toe, there is not a place where the beggar's appearance is not exposed. Su Chaharkan, so what? That is to say, your excellency is destined to beg for a lifetime." "Cut, I won't tell you anymore. I want to take a nap first. Don't leave yet. Every action produces the champion. If I'm not mistaken, you'll be the dominant beggar. The hegemon among beggars. What is that? Still a beggar. The Jewish gang leader in front of me actually claimed that he has the trait of being a gangster. Is it related to his own name? Jon Hardy. HD. Will I also become the hegemon in the gang?" The boss spoke up to recruit Hardy, which made Bill very happy and quickly said, "I was just thinking of asking Jon to help me. He is my best brother, and I want him to take care of things in my area." "Sure, I agree," Fred agreed. Hardy didn't say a word before the matter was decided. That's it, Hardy joined the Jewish gang. Of course, only consider peripheral members. Bill picked up the envelope from his bed and said to Fred, "Boss, Hardy helped me retrieve the share. I'll hand it in now. Say and hand over the money." Second in command Alan Payne took the money handed over by Bill and opened it to count. $6,800, the split should be 5,000, which is 1,008 more than the split, Alan said after counting. Fred took the money and withdrew 1,000 yuan from it to hand to Bill. "This 1,000 is the revenue sharing." Bill happily accepted it. This money is not just his own, according to the rules, there is also Sean and Ryder's share. Fred counted out 1,000 and handed them over. "These 1,000 are for your treatment. If you get injured while working for the gang will cover the cost of treatment." "Thank you, boss." Bill gratefully accepted the money. Fred counted out another $1,800, but this time he handed it to Hardy, who stared at the Jewish gang leader for a moment. Fred smiled and said, "Cook only owes us $5,000, the more belongs to you." Hardy found that the Jewish gang leader was very open-minded in his work, with a share of money, compensation for injuries and illnesses, and 1,800 yuan given to him. The whole thing was done reasonably and grandly. "Hardy, you're welcome, take this money. Fred smiled and was very satisfied with Hardy's performance. At this moment, Bill said, "Boss, what should the Spanish do about Cook's situation?" Fred waved his hand and said in a deep voice, "You don't have to worry about this matter. I will take responsibility. The whole thing is wrong with Cook. They broke the rules first. I will handle this matter. If they can't cooperate well, I don't mind stopping the Spanish business. There are many gangs who want to sell goods on Jewish territory, and there is no shortage of Spanish families." After chatting a few more words, Fred left with his second-in-command, Alan. Bill smiled and looked at Hardy. "Brother, I'll ask you next." Turning his head again, he instructed Sean and Ryder, "You two guys, cooperate well with Hardy. You know, he was my boss in the Marine Corps back then." Sean and Ryder had long admired Hardy in their hearts. As soon as they met earlier, Hardy grabbed his gun empty-handed and restrained them both. Last night, they alone eliminated Cook and his group. They only had respect for such a powerful person. How could they dare to cause trouble? "Don't worry, boss, we will definitely do our job well," the two guys said in unison. Fred and his second-in-command Alan returned to the villa, thinking about picking up the phone and calling the Spanish gang leader Danny. Danny heard that Fred was looking for him, and his eyes narrowed. After taking the phone, he said with a hint of anger, "Fred, was it your people who killed Cook? Cook is my most capable subordinate. 6 of them died in one go." To be honest, Cook's death was indeed a bit painful for Danny. He only had 110 people in total, and 6 of them died at once, which was definitely a significant loss. "Danny, it was you who broke the rules first. I don't know if Cook did it under your command. Red Danny is ready to terminate our cooperation and turn into opposition," Fred said in a tone of disdain. Danny's momentum stagnated. "This is definitely not my suggestion," Danny replied. "Danny, if you want to continue working together, then you have to abide by the rules. Those who want to break the rules, you know better than I do. If you want to play tricks, we have ways to deal with it." Danny took a deep breath and tried to suppress his emotions. "Okay, Fred, I admit that Cook did something wrong with this. He's already dead, and you've taken the money back. That's all for now. Let's continue our previous cooperation, how about that?" Fred had already anticipated the outcome, with a light smile on his face and a faint tone, saying, "Danny, making money is important, and rules are also important. I hope there won't be another time." "I know," Danny replied in a low tone. Pop. The black earpiece landed heavily on the phone rack. Danny's face was full of anger. Since he became the leader of the Red Danny, no one has dared to talk to him like this again, and today he has been taught a lesson. Pick up the cigar from the ashtray and take a deep puff. "We must get rid of the Jews, we must." Turning his head to look at the nearby military strategist Bertrand, "Is it tonight to meet the Irish?" "Yes, tonight at 8 o'clock at the Irish Hoffman's Bar," said Sergeant Bostan. Danny thought for a moment and said to Bostan, "You continue to contact the Mexicans, Chinatown, and other gangs in Los Angeles. I don't want to delay for a day." "Okay, I'll get in touch now." After Bertrand left, Danny walked to the window. His office was on the 18th floor of a building, with a panoramic view of Beverly Hills. "I want to master the entire underground world of Los Angeles, just like Al Capone, to become the king of a city. There is a famous saying. Ambition makes people poor and extremely vicious." Danny's ambition is constantly growing and expanding, for which he is willing to take risks. Night falls. A brand new car is parked at the entrance of the bar. Danny and Sergeant Burston got off the car, followed by 2 subordinates. Looking up at the sign, Hoffman Bar. As soon as they entered the door, someone greeted them and prepared to search them. Danny and his 2 subordinates approached with an unpleasant expression, and the 2 sides immediately confronted each other. Danny waved his hand and let his men go down, lifting his clothes for inspection. They didn't come to fight, so they didn't even bring weapons. "Mr. Danny, Mr. Burston, I'll take you to see the boss. Please follow me," he said before leading the way. The two of them arrived at a private room, where two people were already sitting. The leader of the Los Angeles Irish Gang, the North Coast Gang, is Hemi Wes, and his deputy, Bugs Moran. Hemi Wes has a long, big face with an English mocha hairstyle that makes his face look longer, even a bit comical. However, throughout Los Angeles, no one dares to mock this young man who is only 20.8 years old because he is the leader of Irish people and controls several blocks of Los Angeles. Irish people are known for their ruthlessness, sometimes resorting to any means to do things, so their reputation in the world is not as good as that of Italians and Jews. However, because of this reputation, others are even more afraid to provoke them easily. Hemi stood up with a smile and shook hands with Danny. "Danny, you said on the phone that you have something very important to talk to me about. What's going on? Do you want to sell cocoa powder on my territory? You know, I also have that business. Wes, are you interested in getting the Jewish territory?" Danny opened the door and said. The smile on Hemi's face was certain, and his eyes became deep as he looked at Danny. "Danny, what do you want to do?" "I want revenge," said Danny. Hemingway frowned and said, "Just for one cook, are you planning to go to war with the Jewish gang?" Danny's smile disappeared from his face and he gritted his teeth, saying, "Not only for cook's sake, but also for the sake of business. My cocoa powder business now earns millions of profits every year, but it has to be divided among the Jewish people by about half. They don't need to do anything, and we have to take the risk of losing our heads. This is very unfair. Cook just had a few arguments with the other party over the division issue, and they sent someone to take down 6 of my subordinates. Later, Fred called me again and threatened me, blaming us for everything. This makes me very angry. Wes, if we form an alliance, we can completely eliminate the Jewish gang. After success, our Red Danny only needs 40% of our territory and industry, and the rest will be given to the North Bank gang. How about that?" Danny finished speaking and looked at Hemingway. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Private Liquor Business. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9 Private Liquor Business, what do you plan to do? Wes looked at Danny and asked. Squeeze. First squeeze the Jewish gang's business, including their nightclubs, bars, underground casinos, as well as their high-interest loan business and smuggling business, depleting their strength, and finally launch another attack to completely destroy them, Danny said. Have you ever thought of a Jewish counterattack? Wes asked. Danny gave a faint smile. At the beginning, we don't have to be so blatant. Let's take it step by step and find someone to smash their nightclubs and bars. Robbing liquor trucks, even robbing casinos, and even using customs to disrupt the Jewish gang's smuggling business. I believe those Jewish people will definitely be exhausted if these methods are used. Although a brown bear is huge and fierce, if it becomes riddled with wounds and holes, it will not be as fierce, right, Jaime? Wes took a sip of whiskey from the table, pondered for a moment, and when he looked up, his face was already smiling. Danny, I think your plan is good, and I agree to cooperate with you, she said, reaching out to Danny. Seeing Wes agree, Danny was very happy in his heart. The most important step of the plan had been taken, and he seemed to see victory waving at him. Shake hands with Wes. The two reached an agreement. Form a temporary alliance to deal with the Jewish gang together. Danny left with the strategist, and his deputy Bugs Moran looked at Wes and asked, Hemi, do you believe him? Hemingway chuckled and exhaled a mouthful of cigar smoke. How could I believe him? Danny has never been a person who values loyalty and righteousness. Revenge for his subordinates is all nonsense. As for the sake of business and territory, it is indeed possible, but he doesn't have that much appetite. If he comes to us, the biggest possibility is to provoke us to compete with the Jewish gang. In the end, when both sides are exhausted, he will sit back and reap the benefits of the situation, taking advantage of it to expand. So you agreed to form an alliance with him? Moran said in surprise. We're just calculating with each other. We've always been enemies with the Jews. Why don't we take this opportunity to make a scene? Maybe we can see the benefits, Hemoise said. Danny wants to use us, but I'm using him, hee. Bugs Moran also smiled with Hemi, raised his glass and touched Wes, and the two happily took a sip. Fighting in the underworld, no one is a fool. My mind is no worse than those politicians in politics, otherwise I wouldn't be able to survive. Danny has his own purpose, Wes never had his own ideas. It's just a matter of who performs better. On the sedan. Danny smiled and said to the strategist Bertrand, you see, the Irish are not difficult to handle. They have always hated the Jews, and they will never let go if there is a chance. Bertrand, how are the other gangs getting along? The Mexicans have already made contact and will meet with the Mexicans' boss tomorrow. Tang Ren is afraid to be late as their boss has gone to San Francisco and will not be able to return in a few days. As for the Russians and Poles, you don't need to come forward. I can talk to them and give them any small benefits, and they will rush ahead and work hard for us. Danny nodded. Looking at the bustling neon lights on both sides of the street outside the car window, he seemed to see the entire city becoming his land, and he became the king here. The next day, Hardy officially started working. Sean and Red drove a truck to pick him up, drove for half an hour to the slum, and stopped in front of a large iron gate. Sean honked his horn. The door opened a small hole, and someone looked out. Sean waved at the person before the door opened. The car drove in and parked in the courtyard, which was a row of warehouses. Sean smiled and said to Hardy, John, this is the gang warehouse where all the cigarettes and alcohol are stored. There are a total of 7 taverns and 2 nightclubs in the neighborhood we are responsible for. We receive the bill of lading every evening, and the next morning we come here to pick up the goods and distribute the cigarettes and alcohol. The tavern settles with us once a week, and we also pay the bill every Monday. A strong man came over and greeted Sean and Ryder, then looked at Hardy. Sean smiled and introduced, this is Jon Hardy, the brother of Bill, who will be responsible for our affairs in the future. John, this is Benson, the deputy warehouse manager. Hardy reached out and shook hands with Benson to get to know each other. A few people walked towards the warehouse, and Benson asked, how is Bill? We are out of danger and it will take about 2 to 3 months to recover, Sean said. Benson asked curiously again, by the way, who did the Spanish help for Cook? Do you know that many people are discussing that now? That person is really fierce. He killed Cook and his team alone. Sean quietly glanced at Hardy and then smiled, I don't know, maybe it was done by the top management. Before Fred left, he told Hardy and others not to publicize his killing of Cook, mainly to protect Hardy's personal safety. Hardy didn't want to become famous either, and safety was the most important. Naturally, he agreed with Fred's arrangement, so Sean lied to Benson. Entering the warehouse, Sean took out the order and began to purchase wine, whiskey, rum, vodka, brandy, tequila, fruit wine. Cigarettes include Marlboro, Camel, 3.5 cigarettes, and various cigars. Someone started moving goods onto the car, and Sean and Ryder were responsible for counting them. After everything was loaded onto the car, Sean asked Hardy to sign the list. Hardy took a look and found that the price had reached over $3,000. It should be noted that in 1945, the monthly salary of an ordinary worker was only about $200, and these cigarettes and alcohol were equivalent to 1.5 years of salary for an ordinary worker. This is just the amount they are responsible for in the neighborhood for a day. After bidding farewell to Benson and driving away from the warehouse, Hardy asked Sean, are these cigarettes and alcohol all genuine? Of course, they are all good things, Sean said. How can we make money and raise prices for pubs and nightclubs? Hardy asked in confusion. Sean smiled, "Of course not, our cigarettes and alcohol are even cheaper than the market price. What does it rely on to make money? Smuggling and tax evasion. You don't know how high the federal government's tax rate on tobacco and alcohol is, ranging from 40.5% to over 100%. If we go through legitimate channels, we won't be able to make any money. We evade taxes on domestic tobacco and alcohol, while imported tobacco and alcohol from foreign countries are smuggled goods. Our gang has its own smuggling channels. Even many other regions' tobacco and alcohol are purchased from us. Although the profit margin of tobacco and alcohol is not as high as during the Prohibition period, smuggled goods still make money, and the more expensive the goods, the more profitable they are. In the previous world, Hardy was very interested in American gangster dramas and movies, and had seen almost all of them. He had also studied gangster culture for this reason. He knew that the rise of American gangsters could be attributed to the prohibition of alcohol. During the Prohibition period, the Mafia sold a large amount of private liquor, obtained sufficient funds, and began to grow wildly. Later, the prohibition on alcohol was lifted, but the private liquor business remained an important economic source for the gang, but they went from selling private liquor to smuggling and tax evasion. Will the National Taxation Bureau not investigate? Hardy asked. Of course we will investigate. The National Taxation Bureau is much more powerful than the Federal Bureau of Investigation, so we have been very secretive. Besides, the top management will come forward to take care of it, which is not something we care about, Sean said. The car drove to the entrance of the nightclub. It was the Rabbit Girl nightclub that Bill brought him to on the first day. The manager came out and picked up the order. Soon, all the goods were moved in, and both parties signed the documents. This delivery was considered complete. Unloading cigarettes and alcohol at the nightclub, and rushing to other bars to deliver goods, Sean kept an account and Hardy signed it off. It wasn't until 10 o'clock that they were all delivered. John, let's go eat something. Sean said to Hardy. They haven't had breakfast yet. Okay, go eat something. Pink and tender new book. I just hope to present a refreshing and simple story to everyone. Seeking collection, seeking tickets. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Guns are men's favorite. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Guns are men's favorite. Looking for a small restaurant and ordering hamburger coffee, Sean said while eating, we can take a break now. Usually, bars and nightclubs are open at 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Let's go around and take care of their safety. Simply put, it's about watching the show. If someone causes trouble, take action to drive out those damn drunkards. It's usually easy to solve. We mainly focus on other gang members who may come to cause trouble, but that's rare. Each gang has its own territory, and people from other gangs generally don't step on it. At night, take another round to inquire about the sales situation of the liquor, and when you receive the next day's order, it usually ends at 1 or 2 in the morning, Sean said lightly. In Hardy's opinion, what they actually earn is just hard money. But in this society, who doesn't work hard? What about the accounts receivable? Hardy asked. We only have one fixed account, which is to ask the Spaniards for a share of cocoa powder. Oh, it was cooked before, and you have already killed him. I don't know who it is next, Sean said, looking at Hardy. Also, it's about helping casinos and loan companies collect accounts. Those are tasks taken from the company and finding jobs on your own. I think it's not too late for you to do that once you become familiar with your current business. Hardy understood a bit. Helping the casino and loan company collect accounts is actually making extra money. If he takes on the money himself, he can do it or not. Hardy thought of something and took a bite of the hamburger and asked Sean, is there a way to buy a gun? I want to buy a few guns to use. Joining a gang, you may encounter danger at any time. How can you defend yourself without a gun? Bill's gun was thrown into the Los Angeles River after Hardy killed him, and he needed to prepare some handy tools for himself. Buy a gun, no problem. After dinner, I'll take you to find old Mike, Sean said. After dinner, the three of them drove to a gun shop in the suburbs. The shop was quite large, and when they got off the car, Sean said, "Old Mike is also a member of our gang. He sells firearms through legitimate channels and also sells black guns. Most of the gang members pick up their goods from him." As they spoke, they pushed open the door and the three of them walked in. "Old Mike, there's business coming," Sean shouted to an old man on the lounge chair. Old Mike had gray hair and a big beard. He opened his eyes and got up from the lounge chair, looked at Sean, then turned to Hardy and asked, "Who is this?" "Jon Hardy is Bill's brother. Now that Bill is injured, Hardy is temporarily in charge of his area," Sean introduced. Old Mike walked up to Hardy and looked up and down a few times. "Have you ever served in the army?" "Yes, Marine Corps," Hardy said. The old man nodded and said, "Well, I can feel that aura in you. You should have experienced many battles, and I have also served in the military and participated in World War I. I fought for the Austro-Hungarian Empire, but unfortunately, the country was defeated and the Austro-Hungarian Empire disappeared. Later, I traveled to the United States." "Old Mike, John wants some handy guys," Sean interrupted Old Mike. Old Mike nodded and said, "Okay, come with me." Saying to lead the way ahead, Sean secretly pouted at Hardy and said in a low voice, "Whenever a new person comes, he will nag about his old almanac." Hardy smiled. A few people walked up to a large iron door, and Old Mike took out a bunch of keys from his body to open it. The iron door opened, and Hardy's eyes lit up. The warehouse is filled with shelves, displaying various weapons. Guns and cars are men's favorites, and almost no man doesn't love them, just like a girl can't refuse Barbie dolls and plush toys. Old Mike walked ahead and introduced. Many of these guns have been used and some have been phased out on the battlefield, such as the M1 Garland rifle, M1 carbine, Mauser 98 rifle, and Enfield rifle from the UK. As he spoke, he picked up a gun from the shelf and slapped the barrel with force, saying to Hardy, "You should be familiar with the M1941 Johnson semi-automatic rifle, a Marine Corps mounted firearm, right?" Hardy has completely integrated his consciousness with Hardy, and he is indeed very familiar with this rifle. Taking the gun handed over by Old Mike gives him a feeling of being extremely handy. Click. Hardy pulled the bolt of the gun hard. Duh. Gently pull the trigger. "This gun is well maintained," Hardy said, touching the rifle. Old Mike smiled and said, "I'm not only good at selling guns, but also at selecting and maintaining them. When I purchase these guns, I choose from 1,000 and take care of them myself, ensuring that every gun here is in the best condition." "I'll take this," Hardy said immediately. Old Mike nodded with a smile, $105, "I'll give you 100 bullets. This price is not low, about half a month's salary for an ordinary worker." "Old Mike, these guns are all second-hand goods you've received. Besides, the production cost of these guns is only a few tens of dollars. You're selling them too expensive," Sean joked beside him. Old Mike pouted and said, "The cost of laying eggs for a hen is just a pout of her buttocks. Can I give you the eggs for free?" Hardy was amused by the old man's words and said, $100, send 200 bullets. "Okay, no problem," Old Mike readily agreed. "Keep moving forward and come to the submachine gun area." "How about a submachine gun? Do you want one?" The Thompson submachine gun, known as the Chicago typewriter, and the German MP-40 submachine gun, STG-44. Hardy didn't think much and ordered a Chicago typewriter, which was a perfect match for the gang. "I asked for 2 M1911 pistols. Bill's previous 2 were dismantled and thrown into the river after killing Cook. Hardy decided to supplement them for him. Then he chose a very beautiful Colt revolver. Finally, Hardy saw the Winchester M1887 multiple-shot shotgun again. When Cook used it to shoot him, he thought to himself that he must get one in the future. Now that he saw it with old Mike, Hardy didn't hesitate to buy it directly. There were also machine guns, grenades, and even explosives in the warehouse. The old man asked Hardy if he wanted them, but Hardy shook his head and refused. "Let's wait until there's a need." Old Mike smiled and said, "Okay, come and pick up what you need. I'll give you a discounted price." Talking about discounts, the old man got a lot of money for 3 long guns, 3 short guns, and matching bullets. In the end, the total cost was $460. Yesterday, Hardy received $1,800 and used up a quarter of it all at once, but the money was spent happily. There is a shooting range right behind the gun shop. Hardy came to the shooting range with his gun to practice. Facing the 50-meter target, he almost hit it with his gun, and the discus target was hit with a clanging sound. Sean and Ryder were also shooting together, but their grades were too poor to compare with Hardy. "Jon, your marksmanship is really accurate. Even 10 shots may not necessarily hit the target," Sean envied. "Gunsmanship is all about feeding bullets, and when you can shoot thousands or even tens of thousands of rounds, you can become a skilled marksman," Hardy said. Old Mike nodded beside him and said, "Joe is right. If you want good marksmanship, you need to practice more." As he spoke, he picked up his gun and fired multiple shots at the iron plate without any aiming time. With each shot, the iron plate exploded and the old man calmly left. Looking at old Mike slightly hunched back. Hardy thought to himself, if this old Mike were placed in the world of martial arts, he would probably be at the level of a sweeping monk. After playing until around 4 o'clock in the afternoon, they left the old Mac gun shop, wandered around several bars, and finally arrived at the Bunny Girl nightclub. At this moment, the sky is gradually getting dark, and more drinkers are coming to the door. Hardy, Sean, Ryder and the 3 of them got off the car, and the guard at the door saw the 3 of them say hello and let them go. "Let's find a place to sit, actually there's very little to do," Sean said. As she was walking inside, a tall and glamorous woman with blonde hair and a red coat walked by and saw Sean say hello before finally looking at Hardy. A pair of wonderful eyes looked up and down at him with great interest. "Sean, who is this handsome guy?" Sean quickly introduced, "Jon Hardy, my new boss, is now in charge of this area. Jon, this is Marissa." Marissa took 2 steps forward, her high heels clattering on the wooden floor, and only stopped when she approached Hardy. The woman's figure is very tall, and Hardy is now over 1.8 meters tall. Standing in front of him, Marissa is not much shorter. The woman looked at Hardy with brown eyes and smiled as she reached out her hand. "Hello Mr. Hardy, can you meet me?" "My honor." Hardy has no phobia towards women. Smiling, he reached out and shook hands with the other person. "Have a drink together when you have time." "Of course it's good." Marissa's red lips curled slightly towards Hardy, revealing a smiling face. She turned around and walked away wearing high heels, her waist twisted like willows. Red took a long time to take his gaze back from the woman's back and said to Hardy with envy, "He has never spoken to us like this before, including Bill, but he is very enthusiastic about you today. It seems that being handsome is just being welcomed by women." Sean smiled and said, "Jon, Marissa is the most beautiful woman in the Bunny Girl. She has a lot of charm and has attracted many customers. The boss gave her the highest commission." Hardy came up with a word. "Night Princess." There will be many people like this in future KTVs, warming up the atmosphere and attracting drinkers to come and consume. However, the Marissa in front of me should be the most exquisite kind. In ancient China, it should be called Huakue. Sean continued, "Many men pursue her, but not many people can get hold of her. She just looked at you with a look that seemed interested in you. Keep pushing yourself, maybe you'll have a chance to climb onto her bed in the future." End of this chapter.